welcome to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast, Achieving Peace Through Compassion. This podcast is a recording of the Dharma Talks given during our Sunday service.
I was just tearing up, sitting on the cushion, thinking about the loving kindness meditation and that part when it gets to what a parent will do to protect their child. So I was listening to one of the babies making their baby sounds and thinking about how precious they are and how we forget just because we get older, we become less precious. No, 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 no. Then that got me thinking about some of the things we were talking about this weekend. And I'm wondering if Patty is here. I don't think I see Patty. No. Okay. Is Kelly here? Okay. All right. So for those of you who weren't with us this weekend, we talked a little bit about courage and what it takes to face uh, our eventual demise. Yeah. And the aging process and becoming ill, letting go of certain faculties and areas of expertise, um, voluntarily or involuntarily retiring. All these things came up. And so that means I have some unfinished business that I want to share with you. Sorry, I have allergies. Um, I used to call, when I was a seminary professor teaching chaplaincy, things would come up. And so when we'd get together again, I would say, is there any unfinished business that we have to discuss before we get into the material? Invariably, there was always unfinished business. So I just want to share very briefly that if you are thinking about letting go of things largely because you can't control holding on to them anymore, um, that my hope is that this practice is really helping us have the ability to adjust to change, to adjust to change. As a pastoral counselor, one of the things that I do with clients is determine or help them identify what is your ability to adjust to the change that you are experiencing right now, especially the change or changes that are causing you distress or suffering. And if there's a difficulty in making that adjustment, then say, let's just be gentle. We talked about patience yesterday. Let's be patient with oneself. Try to be non-judgmental about it. This is a change that you're going through for the first time. You are not practiced in dealing with this adjustment. So just allow yourself to adjust at the pace that makes sense for you. And we all have adjustments to make. And this is what I think mindfulness is really wonderful for. Meditation practice is really wonderful for. It helps our mind be flexible. Neuroplasticity is maybe something you've heard of from neuroscientists. So if you need any encouragement to keep practicing mindfulness and meditation, know that it will come in handy throughout your entire life because you will face a myriad of changes that will not always be easy to adjust to, but having a flexible mind really supports that. So I'll leave that there for now. Yeah, that's my unfinished business that is now finished. Yesterday, we were talking about Sangha as refuge. Oh, okay, so you all, what's your name, by the way? Josh, do you mind? I'm calling you out a little bit, Josh. Do you know anything about Buddhism? Okay, a little bit. Okay. If there's anything that you don't understand, thank you. All right. So Sangha as refuge. We were talking this weekend about Sangha as refuge, in particular in Kansas City at this time in our history right now. What is Sangha in KC right now supposed to be about? And not that I've come here for the first time to tell you what your community should be about, but I did have the opportunity to learn what you do have to offer. Okay, Josh, this is my opinion based on a very brief experience. This is what you're walking into. Okay. They're not going to tell you this because it may sound like bragging. But what you walked into is a community of people who do truly commit a part of their life to learning how to love other people, how to practice compassion for other folks, how to be of service to people in need, um, and how to reveal their authentic selves, of which I got to witness yesterday over and over again. There's a lot of wisdom in this community. Agreed? Yeah, lots of wisdom. You're welcome. Here's something else that I made a little list of other things that I think you all are offering. I think you're offering in a culture of retribution, which we talked about yesterday. You are offering courage, the wisdom of courage by looking at yourself, noticing what scares you, confronting that, not being convinced by it, working through it, living through it. That's what courage is. And that's what this practice is helping us cultivate. You're also offering um, letting go in a culture that says, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, grab on with all your might to that which means something to you, especially your egos and your opinions. And don't back away. Compromise is weak. And yet we share so much. We share all the nutrients for our lives. And as Buddhist practitioners, we care about the lives of others. So compromise is actually a strength. And I think in this community, you can learn more about how to do that well. I think you're also offering a culture of, how do I want to put this? I'm going to put this in the best possible. This is now a trigger word, I think. Intellectualism in an anti-intellectual culture, increasingly anti-intellectual. I got to see your library and I was really impressed. And Kate and I talked about, I woke up with this, thinking about our conversations. It saddens me that people don't want to read. Young people are taking the teachings of expedient means in the wrong way. The faster I can get this paper to you, whether I wrote it or not, that's not what we're trying to do. We want to cultivate the ability to think and to think critically. And you can do that in this community. They have resources, the way they talk to each other. Um, it's a great, great place to learn how to think and to think critically. Um, okay, I have a terrible sense of humor. And by terrible, I mean sick and sometimes offensive. Because I don't know better. Sometimes I just don't know better and can't help myself. Sometimes I just can't help myself. So that all that is warning to say I'm about to go there. So I was reading your service book uh, and was reading about, let me see if I can find where it is. Okay, I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Paul Denlamo. Did I pronounce it correctly? Paul Denlamo? This is Paul Denlamo right here. This black lady. Right. So I'm looking at this black lady up here, reading about her being wrathful. And I said, I don't ever think I've seen a self-portrait like that. I know my eyes aren't as wild as those, but the energy, yeah, I've got that energy. And I kind of like that. And then it got me thinking about the culture that we live in, which is increasingly anti-Black female. Oh, yeah. Wiping out Black women from positions of power. We can really see how trauma is playing out in the executive office. And this is really important for Buddhist practitioners because we have our own traumas, yeah, that we're working on. We create sanghas for people to bring the varieties of human suffering for the possibility of healing from that suffering. So if we can see how trauma plays out in our society, maybe that prepares us better for helping people in our communities deal with their trauma without blame. Now, certain people had to face um, being held accountable for their various crimes and misdemeanors by many Black women. I mean, if you were paying attention as I was, and maybe you weren't, but even if you were, then you saw that every time, almost every time this person was being held accountable, they were being held accountable by a Black woman. So, of course, there are no Black women serving in this administration right now and won't because of that trauma. And it doesn't mean it's right, but we're not going anywhere and we're going to keep doing our thing. And it is our responsibility as Dharma practitioners to hold each other accountable as well. Yeah, gently if necessary, firmly or wrathfully if necessary, so that we can hold our egos in check, our behaviors in check, and also open our hearts while we're being held in check, opening our hearts, because if you're like me, or like trying to be like the Buddha taught us to believe in the goodness of each person, no matter what they're doing, no matter what they've done, even in the midst, as we were talking about yesterday, even in the midst of hurting us, we can choose to hold the belief that they can do better than what they're doing in that moment and tell them that. And I'm just waiting for people to say, Mr. President, I know you can do better than this, and say it publicly. You've got 11 grandchildren? I know you must care about children. Your policy may not show that. I know you can do better than this. That might be our job to do. Okay, back to y'all. Okay, which I never really left you. Because of this and all of this and this, by the way, I love this. This Sangha offers an opportunity to go beyond Eurocentrism. This is a Tibetan practice. Wow. Wow. It's a Tibetan practice that I think also comes out of the history of being refugees. And in this culture, the way we talk about refugees and asylees and immigrants and migrants as if they are disconnected to our own histories and experiences shows a deep disconnection uh, in reality and in ourselves and maybe even our collective soul. It's not right. And we know we can do better and have done better. It's as if we don't even know our own history and as if we don't even understand our own strength. Let's get back to that. Because of this and who you are, here's what I see. And arrest me if you need to. Because it sounds like this is becoming a criminal offense. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's all right here. What is the problem with that? It's all right here. I'm with you. So sad. And yet, the reality doesn't change the reality. Variety is what reality is. And if you're like me, it is the spice of life. Oh, if we all thought the same things, did the same things, looked the same way, can you imagine how bland of an existence that would be? And yet there is a movement to kind of normalize a certain way of being that we should all adhere to, conform to, and bow down to, which I refuse to do. Actually, it's not even possible for me to do that. I would be doing a disservice to myself, even injuring myself in trying to do that.
Oh,
I
humanity.
think that your Sangha supports authentic expression, belonging. I have experienced radical hospitality, and I thank you all for that. Thank you. Let's see what else. Long list of what y'all are offering. Okay, here's what I want to say, as if I didn't want to say the previous things. I really want to say this. The Buddha and Buddhism offers human intelligence. What is all this stuff about artificial intelligence? Why are we getting so worked up about artificial intelligence when human intelligence is pretty good? I mean, we don't know everything. We never will. We won't be as fast as robots and computers. We appreciate the efficiency, all of that. But what about human intelligence? Especially, I'm going to call it Buddha intelligence. Have y'all heard that term? Buddha intelligence? Because I made it up right here. That's how I roll. I make up stuff on the spot, just like that. The Buddha intelligence that I want to speak to has to do with having grown up with privilege. Okay, and the privilege I'm talking about can be any kind of privilege, but the privileges that obscure our connection with reality. Okay, that's the kind of privilege I'm talking about. So, and that can be anything. And then he gets curious. Now, I know there are many Buddhist stories. This may not be the Buddhist story that you all talk about in this community, but he gets curious according to the story. It's like something ain't right. Right, Buddha, before he's the Buddhist, Siddhartha. Something ain't right. So, with his privilege, he decides to leave his privileged situation and do a little exploring. And in his exploration, he's encountered by what people really experience in this life. Of course, this is part mythical because he was already experiencing it. He had already grown to a certain age, right? He had already gone through a maturation process. Surely he saw other children in the compound, right? And maybe old people. But he's confronted with the fact that human beings die, get sick, get old, and so on. And it scares him to death, almost to death, over 6 years of a dying process, right? And then I saw something in your service book that made me think, oh, I gotta get there. There's a bullet point that I want to add to something. Yes, this is in the 12 deeds of the Buddha. Okay. So I'm reading this for the first time and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is a very good summary of the steps of enlightenment. Is that the intention? Yeah, the steps of enlightenment in bullet point. But there's one bullet point that's missing that I think the Dakini group is going to appreciate, in particular, the Dakini group. And that is, okay, so we're on page, what is that? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right hand column. See the bullet point that says practicing austerities for 6 years? Okay. Going to the Bodhi tree's base. Somewhere in there is a bullet point missing. And it's the girl who saw him almost dying and gave him some nutrients, some milk or some kind of substance so that he could begin eating again and getting his strength back, where then later he proclaims this polarized way of being is not the way to enlightenment. It's through the middle way. Right? And so the human intelligence that I'm talking about has to do with our relationships with each other. The Buddha intelligence is based on witnessing when we or others are suffering and pulling each other from the brink of unnecessary despair, depression, and death. And no amount of artificial intelligence, as I understand it, can replicate the experience, the human experience of empathizing with someone who is downtrodden. I can imagine, though, there will be, and there have been attempts to create robotic monks in Japan. Maybe you heard about that, where you can go to the robot and ask a question, right? And the robot gives you an answer, but the robot cannot read one's feelings, right? The robot doesn't have that ability. I don't doubt that that's in the works. Nevertheless, in the meantime, are we willing to use our human intelligence to observe and really witness to a person's experience and then hand them the juice, the milk, the nutrient, the support, the witnessing that they need to back away from the brink of destruction, self-destruction in particular, in the pursuit of something that could never be attained. And the Buddha was like, I can't. This is the life that I will experience, must go through. And now I'm willing to do it. Now I understand. This is a very powerful lesson, especially now. Now, back to the Sangha and what you offer. You offer human and Buddha intelligence through compassion practices and also through practices in empathy. Just being willing to resonate with another person who is feeling something. Not so long ago, we might say it's not really that important to stress the importance of empathy. But now it is. Did you ever imagine that we would have leaders who would say, empathy is a problem? The loss of empathy is the beginning of being able to justify hurting people. And so we must renounce this turn towards vilifying empathy. We must do it. So if you are like me trying to figure out what news do I want to consume and how much of it do I want to consume and how regularly do I want to consume it because I want to stay in balance. We talked about that this weekend too. But I also want to be informed, right? Right, trying to find that. So it is important that people not define the news for us. I really believe that. Yeah, because not everybody. People in the news who are trying to make money and have an audience and keep their audience satisfied do that by being the first to report on something, right? Breaking news. You can always come here to know what is happening because we're going to be the first to break it. In the attempt to be the first to break the news, they don't always get it right. And they reduce it to sound bites, right, that we can just easily access on our smartphones. And we lose the context. So the conventional wisdom, if you will, what people are saying about what Elon Musk said about empathy, that empathy is a problem, that's not really what he said. And I'd like to take a moment to find what he really said so I can share it with you. Okay. This was reported by Yahoo. Y'all remember Yahoo? They're still around. They are still around. Okay. Lost some market share, but that's another story. Okay. what I love about how they reported on this is they provided the context so that we can get it right. So Musk was talking to Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Okay. This was February 28th, 2025. So apparently, there's a man by the name of God Saad, Saad. Do you know this person, God Saad, who is a regular guest on the Joe Rogan Experience? And they were talking about some things that he has said. All right, so here we go. Musk. There's a guy who posts on X who's great. God Saad, Rogan. Yeah, he's a friend of mine. He's been on the podcast a bunch of times. Musk. Yeah, he's awesome. And he talks about, basically suicidal empathy. Like there's so much empathy that you actually suicide yourself. So we've got civilization, suicidal empathy going on. And it's like, I believe in empathy. Like, I think you should care about other people, but you need to have empathy for civilization as a whole and not commit to a civilizational suicide. Rogan. Also, don't let someone use your empathy against you so they can completely control your state and then do an insanely bad job of managing it and never get removed. Musk. So here's the quote. The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. The empathy exploit. They're exploiting a bug in Western civilization, which is the empathy response. So I think empathy is good, but you need to think it through and not just be programmed like a robot. Rogan, right. Understand when empathy has actually been used as a tool. Musk, yes, like it's weaponized empathy is the issue. So I would like to say about all that. That don't make no sense. That is over intellectualizing what makes us human. And it's scaring people into feeling for other people. It's a way of saying, don't be vulnerable in front of other people because they will take that vulnerability and use it against you. To say that something about being human is a bug in the system, Western civilization is a system like a computer system. I can understand because I've been practicing putting myself in other people's perspectives so I can understand how an engineer who's all about engineering might see it that way. But again, back to human intelligence and Buddha intelligence, this is nonsense. And I feel like I can say that strongly because I do spend a lot of time with people talking about their feelings. So please don't fall into this trap. Back to what this Sangha offers. It offers, because I've experienced, now I can tell you from my personal experience, this Sangha offers an opportunity, a container, a community for you to be who you truly are. Vulnerable, compassionate, empathetic, unsure, confused, desiring, letting go. The human experience, all of it is welcome here. Yeah. What'd you say, Penny? Going back to the Buddha story for a moment, the Buddha had some really hard reality checks when he left the palace, according to the story. Really hard reality checks. And so do we, and will continue to be. We were talking about the reality check of aging and losing the ability to do things that we once found great joy in and competence in. I wear this. This is an ID bracelet. I wear this in the event I forget who I am because it has happened before. Yeah, I don't mean it in the Buddha sense. I mean, like, one day I was going to physical therapy, and hours later, for my regular physical therapy, and then hours later, I was in a hospital with no memory of the last 4 hours of my life, what they call global transient amnesia. Yeah. What? Me? Are you kidding? Me? Not knowing anything, not remembering anything that happened. It was so humbling. And one of the adjustments I made, should it ever happen again, because I do have enough faith in humanity. As my physical therapist said, I asked you, what's your daughter's name? And you couldn't remember. I asked you the president's name. You couldn't remember. And that's when I called the ambulance. I do have enough faith in humanity that if I get confused, that they will be able to look for something, find this, and call the ambulance. This is the adjustment that I made to the incident that I had. Right. And so my hope is that we will make the adjustments that we have to make to the changes that we will encounter when we also have reality checks that are seemingly too difficult to bear because it goes against our self-concept. Yeah. Even when giving a Dharma talk now, I'm like, oh God, am I going to remember stuff? And in Buddhism, there's so many lists, right? I can remember the Four Noble Truths, but maybe the Eightfold Path, I'm not sure. My point in saying that is we've got to do our best. Let's just keep showing up to do our best and be in a community that understands what it is that we're going through. And I believe this community is like that. I want to end my comments by talking about the value of gratitude and appreciation. Yeah. People often ask me, I'm not, or they'll say, I'm not happy. How can I experience happiness? I firmly believe that if you can bring to mind one thing you're grateful about, you are on the road. And that might be it right there. Gratitude. So I want to express gratitude to his long list. Try to keep it short. When I taught at the seminary in the interreligious chaplaincy department, I said to the president at the time that I think their students would learn best if they could be with people from other faiths, if they're studying interreligious chaplaincy. And we are a Christian seminary. Um, so we've got to go to the parliament of the world's religions. And I need your money to make that possible. And he said, okay. That was in Toronto, and that's where I met Lama Matt. He was kind then, and then we met again at the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago. He was kind then, and since then has been kind to me. So I'd say that he's a kind person, and I'm grateful. I'm really grateful to you. Thank you. I'm grateful to the Buddha. What's been said about the Buddha, I don't know. I wasn't there. But I'm really grateful to the things and all the people who work towards preserving the teachings and the varieties of traditions that they are. When we were doing the service today, I said, "Oh, that sounds like insight. Oh, that sounds like Zen. Oh, that sounds like Shambhala. Oh, that right." So different words, but getting to different practices, but getting to the basic goodness of who we are, reminding us of that. So I'm grateful to the Buddha and all the people who've worked towards preserving the teachings and making them accessible. I am grateful to the founders, though I never met them, Lama, Chuck, and Mary, the founders of the Rime Center. 30 years, did you say 30 years? 30 years? That's not easy to do, to maintain a community. You know how we can be as human beings, right? Tearing stuff down when we get upset. Not that I've ever done that. No. Scorched earth, wrathful. Yes, tear it down. But sometimes tearing down and building up again, because the foundation, the values that this community represents are profound and supportive. And so thank you, Rime Center, for still being here, and for the house that you have and the community and the structures that you intend to build. I wish you all well in that regard. That's not going to be easy work, but it's worthwhile work. I think about having centers to visit and practice in and make friends in and be family with have been very valuable to me. I wish you well in that regard. I'm grateful to everyone who I met this weekend. Everybody I had conversations with. I had the best time. I was not expecting to have a good time in Kansas City. Prejudices. I don't know if Kansas City is not like on the list of progressive cities, right? Where maybe a person like me can come and feel at home. So I thought. And I was wrong. Completely wrong. I told Lama Matt, sorry, I think this might be a best kept secret in certain ways. That's why the cost of living is so low. Right? Right, don't. But I took a walk in the park today. People were so friendly. And I told Lama Matt that something happened to me that's never happened to me before. I was just walking in front of the coffee shop, and there was a police SUV parked outside the coffee shop. And I was just walking, and the two police officers raised their heads and said, "Good morning." What? I loved it. I love that. So I'm grateful for that experience. And I feel in these times where I have had my own waves, deep and long waves of despair, distrust, disappointment, so many D words. Um, Sitting at my computer, being disconnected, that being with you all is like, oh God, this is exactly what I needed. Exactly what I needed. I think I was supposed to say something about casting Indra's net, but I'll say this. I'll just say this. Please, in your practices, in your life, if in this time of despair and distrust, if we can be people who can remember that we are all connected to one another. Each and every one of us is connected in this Indra's net, which Martin Luther King Jr. called the inescapable network, right? Inescapable network. Why are we trying to escape? Why are we trying to put people in their places? Why are we taking people to the edges of space? We won't get away from each other, right? So let's think about how we can continue to appreciate one another, see each other as kin, trust one another, learn to trust one another, enjoy one another. Um, Let us be those people regardless of what they say about us and what they say about other people. Because now we know mostly what they say about other people is not true. It's part of an agenda, right? So I'll close and say again, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast. Music was provided by Barefoot Bran Music. Please consider supporting the Rime Buddhist Center by making a donation at our website at www.rimecenter.org/donate.